What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 440 Guitar Podcast. I am your host, Jerrell Powell. Thank you so much for tuning up. You can catch the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anchor.fm/440. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at the 440 Guitar Podcast. And if you have any questions, you can either send me an email at the 440podcast@gmail.com, or you can also send me a voicemail at anchor.fm/440. You can get in contact with me there. And this is the first episode of 2023 for the 440 Guitar Podcast. I know we're in March, but we are definitely blessed to have a great guest here today. Very excited to speak to, have a bunch of questions to ask, and just really happy to have him here on the show just to introduce this great artist here. He's played with a wide range of artists, from Robert Glasper and the Weather Report's Victor Bailey to Anderson .Paak, Pete Rock, and is a member of the Soul, and many more, obviously. But it also is a member of the Soul Hop supergroup, according to Guitar World, how they describe the group. DMD the Vibes, alongside with drum phenom Daru Jones, Jack White, Talib Kweli. He's played with those artists, and Living Color bassist Doug Wimbish, and provides his slamming electric guitar riffs and screaming solos in the hip hop hard rock Project 13, headed by legendary rapper Pharoahe Monch. The 440 Guitar Podcast is very happy to have Marcus Machado on the show here. How you doing, man?
Yeah, man, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, man. Everything is cool. Just getting up. You know what I mean? But I'm good.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, man. This rain has really thrown me for a loop, just because, I'm not sure what it is on, like, say, like the East Coast or whatnot, but just California always has very schizophrenic weather. It's like last week it'll be just raining crazy, and then the week after that it'll be super sunny. So
man,
it's been a hard adjustment for myself.
No, man. I feel you likewise too, because like in New York, it's been the same type of weather. It's been more so like snow, and then it's like super cold, and then sometimes it warms up. So it's just like, I don't know. We're living in the time of bipolar weather. You don't know what.
And it's like, and it's March. I thought we were gonna get into the nearing spring.
It's gonna be snowing in April. It's gonna be snowing in April, man. Get ready. Because it was crazy because I seen it like what was it, a couple days ago. You guys got snow out here. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is insane.
I read somewhere that it was the first time LA had snow since like the 1980s, which is like crazy. I'm like, wow. So
that's crazy, man. That's crazy, man. Try to do as much as you can. That's what I tell everybody, because this weather is like, I don't know, man.
I
don't know. Yeah,
definitely. So here on the 440 Guitar Podcast, really big on origin stories, how people got to where they are today. And usually the first question I like to ask artists is, tell me about your first memory of music.
First memory of music, I think it had to have been, what was I like? Well, first memory of music was probably 2 years old, because I picked up the guitar at 2. And the first thing that I heard, my parents had like a crazy collection. So I could remember, I could hear like, their collection was like Earth, Wind and Fire, Jimmy, Led Zeppelin, Joni Mitchell, Weather Report, like just array of all different genres of music. But the first musical memory that I can remember was listening to Axis Boldest Love, the first song on their EXP, where they had all these crazy UFO sound guitars and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know. I still remember that to this day at 2 years old. That was like the first musical memory that I heard. And then the second one was, my mother took me to see Shaka Khan and Al Jarreau. And that was like, I'll never forget. It was like this big like festival, and we sitting on the grass. And I had to have been about maybe like 3-4 years old. But yeah, that's probably my first musical memory. Yeah, those two.
Wow. Now, at 2 years old, usually when I hear the artist, they start playing the instrument, or at least holding it, getting acquainted with it at such a young age. Usually when it's that young, I always assume, or it tends to be where people in the family played instruments as well. Was that the case for your family? Did you
My mother, she wasn't a musician, but she was like, I call her the A&R. Like, she could tell you any type of music that, this song is going to be a hit. Sure enough, it was a hit and stuff like that. And then my father, he was a musician, so he had instruments, and the guitar was laying around the house, and I never forget it. Had a 75 Strat, 1975 Strat, and I remember crawling to it and been playing ever since. That's been the whole thing. But yeah, I think yeah, just having instruments lying around, and yeah, and just experiment with everything. And then I remember like 4 years old or like kindergarten, my first song that I learned was Wind Cries Mary. So I
Oh,
played that at
nice.
I played that at my my kindergarten graduation. So yeah, so that was it was funny, but yeah, that was like my first musical memories, just really like picking up the guitar and just something about it. You know what I mean? It's just hard to explain. It was just like wow. And then from there, just professionally start playing the guitar at 9 years old. Yeah. Mhm.
Mm. Dang. Well, I definitely want to get to that when you're
Yeah.
9. I was gonna say too, you playing "Wind Cries Mary" the first time. That's a fairly complex song
Yeah,
for Jimi
yeah, yeah,
Hendrix.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know
It was. It
those
was.
melodies and chords and
Yeah, it
stuff.
was. It was. I mean, those tapes are long gone, but if I can ever find them, there's a VHS tape of me playing that, at the kindergarten graduation. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jimmy for me, of course, huge, musical influence, but it was just
Yeah.
something about his music that drawn me to, just the playing and just the everything, as a guitarist. And, from there, I just would just how the way I picked up stuff was by ear. And I'll just be playing the records and going back and forth and just learning how to play the song. And yeah, When Cries Mary was the first one. So it was almost like when you're a kid and you want to solve something like a puzzle or something like that, you just try to, find the right pieces to make sure that you get to the finish line. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we're so spoiled. We're so spoiled today. We got YouTube and all this shit.
Oh man, there was no YouTube. That we had a vinyl player and I had cassettes. So if you had to bring the needle back or rewind the tape to go back and learn whatever. You know what I mean? YouTube now is like anything. You know what I mean? You can
Right.
pick up anything and yeah, it's right there. So
Yeah, because I feel
yeah,
like I feel for those folks where it's like that wasn't available. It's almost like a lot of those folks. I would arguably say they probably have a better ear because it's like they're forced to real. Okay, this person's playing this, and then a lot of the times
yeah,
like in the recording, the tuning is different on like the G string or some shit.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's like, what were you guys doing, man? Like, you didn't tune up. You didn't tune up before you record. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Now obviously, and that young, I was curious, as far as like how much of an influence. Were you? Did you as a child? Did you grow
Mhm.
up like in the church or anything like that? Playing the church,
Yeah,
growing
yeah.
up.
But for me, church was more definitely part of my growing up. But I didn't really get into playing church not until a later age, so not around
Mm.
like early teenager
Oh,
time and
okay.
stuff like that. My grandmother on my father's side, she was a Jehovah's Witness, so she would take us to Bible study, and that type of church wasn't, there was no musicians or nothing like that. It was just get
Yeah.
up and sing the Watchtower, stuff like that. But
Right.
it
Hymns
wasn't
or
until like
whatnot.
around
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't until like I say 13 or 14. Then that's when a cousin of mine down in Florida, I start really, experimenting and really going down there. And of
Hmm.
course, like everybody else, like that was the place to where like if you didn't have no money and you wanted to learn an instrument, all the instruments were there in church. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of musicians you see that they play different instruments because everything was there. It was like if the drummer couldn't make if you don't know how to play drums, you better get behind the kit and learn how to play. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was one of those things too. But yeah, church wasn't until like around I say like I believe 13, 14. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you said your career started professionally at 9.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, man. 9 years of my mom, she was like my manager. And like I said, like not too many parents were, you know, I think like now, like, if your child is like musically inclined, it's like, okay, let me make money off this kid and like use it
Yeah.
as like, oh, he had some, but my mom was kind of like, she was just really like chilled and super like straightforward. She was just like, okay, as long as you make good grades in school, I'll go find shows for you. And if you got a C or D, there ain't no shows. So
Oh, damn.
that forced me to make sure that I was on my P's and Q's in school. And then, at nighttime, I would go and play. And literally like I'll be in the club until 1 o'clock and then turn around and go to school at 7 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, my first musical show was 9 years old. It was like a showcase, and I never forget it. It was at the time I was living in Florida, and I remember it was like a showcase. They had all these different genres of music, and during the day prior to the event, they would have like these different A&Rs to where you could listen to your cassette tapes, and they could critique and like tell you what to work on or possibly get a record deal at that time. And at this time, I'm a young kid playing guitar, Black. My stuff was a little bit of everything. It was rock, it was R&B, it was funk. So they played the tape for about 30 seconds, and then they stopped it, and they told my mom, and they told me, they was like, who's this person? They thought I was like a adult. They didn't know I was a kid. And it was like, well, this music right here is not going to work because it's not urban enough. I said, what? He said, what do you mean it's not urban enough? So right then and there, that was like my first test of like, no matter what it is that you want to do, stick with it, and don't let the odds or anybody tell you what you can't do. Because then that night, my mom, she told me, she was like, go out there and make sure you do your best and play your heart out. And that night got a standing ovation, and those same people came back and said, oh, I'm so sorry to say that, and we appreciate everything you do. And that was my first drive to like, what, it was like, man, just to get that feeling of playing on stage was a totally great experience. And it just forced me to, right then and there, I was like, from here on out, as old as I get or whatever, as long as I can play, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. So that was pretty much it.
Nice. Yeah, because when I hear your guitar phrasing, it sounds like a myriad of various influences, even from like 80s. You know what I mean? You have a really definitely a vibrant vibrant way of guitar phrasing, which
for me, like, I really dug, of course, Jimmy's one, Stevie, and Jeff Beck. But what I was really fascinated by was their harmonies too, like even like cats like Brian May. And then also too, like in the 80s, where they would like harmonize these different phrases with guitars, because it was almost like a choir almost. I mean, Prince did that a lot too as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now, I was curious. I thought I read this somewhere. Are you left-handed but play right-handed?
I'm both. I'm right-handed.
Okay.
I'm right-handed, but I also too play left-handed, backwards. Yeah. So yeah, that was something that I picked up when I was like around 15, and growing up, like I would play basketball, but then I would dunk with my left. And I was just like, other certain things I would use with my left more so than my right. It just felt comfortable. And then I was like, man, I said, I wonder if, if I pick up a left-handed guitar, play it upside down, and have the strings, have the high E string first, and then, almost like the Albert King type of vibe. I wonder if that would do anything to my psyche. Like, would it make me play different if I played right hand? And then I began to realize that that's a whole different world of playing. It's like everything that you do on the right hand, you can't do on the left.
Yeah.
So I completely stopped playing right hand for like 2 years. And I was just like, man, if I fumble on a gig, figure it out. And, I got it to where that I was like comfortable enough to where that I could play a whole gig. And then, yeah, from now, it's like I'll go back and forth. Like sometimes I'll play left, sometimes I'll play right. But yeah, it's a totally, after those 2 years of playing only left-handed, when I went back to the right, it just did something to your playing, like phrasing and just how the whole approach to guitar playing is like, it's very weird of like playing all these different melodies and different stuff. But yeah, that was something that, I wouldn't recommend, but but if you have a lot of time and patience, try it. You know what I mean? It's cool.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked is that I'm left-handed, and I just learned right-handed because either left-handed guitars were not available or they just weren't made very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. What's funny? I was at Norman's Guitars yesterday, and one of the guys was saying the same exact thing. He was like, he's left-handed, but he was forced to play right-handed because there was no guitarist made. You know what I mean? So it's tricky, but you can use both at times when you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, because even it's funny. Like my friend, he's also a guitar player, and he's right-handed by nature, and just
Yeah,
his strumming. Sometimes I just get jealous. I'm like, I can't strum like that.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I just have to figure it out. What I mean? Like I just have
yeah,
to do my own thing. But
yeah,
it's just interesting. Like to certain ways, you're like, okay, I have to compensate some way because this isn't happening.
yeah, yeah. I know. This is not working for me.
Man,
Yeah,
man.
man. Mhm.
Crazy. So, I wanted to talk about, and I know it came out in 2021, but I
Mm.
wanted to talk a little bit about your album Aquarius Purple,
Yeah.
which I really like. I think it's a really great album.
Thank you, man.
So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
on
Thank you.
having that. You
Appreciate it.
know, I guess as far as just when it comes to just the overall just collection of songs and everything, where did the as far as like where did it stem from, as far as like, hey, I want to put this project together? Like, I know you have your influences of Hendrix and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a myriad of artists. Like, how did that
Hmm.
come to be? Was it something where you've been kind of writing some of these songs over the years, or was it something
Hmm.
where you kind of flushed these songs out in a certain period of
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. I mean, Aquarius Purple was crazy, man, because at the time I was living in Amsterdam for a couple of years, and just like touring and like getting into production and stuff. And these collections of songs, some songs I started in Europe, and I always wanted to come out with, of course, with a debut album, but everything was about timing, and it was like, every time I wanted to put out an album, I have to go on tour. It was always something. So a lot of these songs, I would start it, and then I was like, okay, I put it on the hard drive and I finish it. So you're talking about probably somewhere from, I don't know, probably like 2015 all the way up to 2021. It's
Mm,
almost like a 6, 7 year period. And wasn't up until when the pandemic happened, 2019, everything, of course, went to a halt. There's no shows, there's no nothing. So then I was like, man, I'm not, I was fortunate enough I was still able to stay busy, but then I was like, now I really have time to finish what I need to start. And I was like, this is a perfect time to let's really get all these songs and cohesive and really try to get down this whole project. And then the more that I kept recording new stuff, and then plus the old stuff that I started in Europe, these collections of songs start coming together. And then I start realizing, I was like, man, I was like, this is really coming together the way that I want it. And then finally, once I got it, down to the songs that I wanted in the structure, then it was the whole marketing, campaign. I was like, well, how am I going to put this out in a time where there's nobody's buying records, there's no streaming, there's like everything is at a standstill. I'm like, maybe I waited too long. I was like, I don't know. It was like a 50-50. It was a gamble because I was like, man, I was like, nobody's not going to listen to this stuff because it's like we ain't doing nothing. But then it actually worked in my favor because everybody had a chance to really sit down and actually listen to records versus like,
mm,
you're always on the go. And it's like, yeah, somebody comes out with an album this week, it's brand new on Monday, and then Friday it's like old news. So
mm,
then I was like, you know what? I want to use the same approach and kind of put out this only vinyl first instead of doing the streaming stuff. Because for me, I always feel like music belongs on vinyl, period. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what type of genre of music, just how the way it's the sound, and just it's a journey, just listening to it, flipping it over, looking at the song credits, to find the picture, everything. And yeah, I was like, man, you know what? Let me try my luck and put it out on vinyl first and see what happens. And it actually worked in my favor because then we put out the record on vinyl and everything sold out. And then it got such of a demand to where they was like, okay, you got to put it on streaming platforms. And I was like, at first I was like, nah, but after a while, some people don't have a vinyl player, and then it kind of worked out. And I'm super grateful and thankful for that project. And it's about probably a 6, 7 year process of getting it to the way that I want it. And prior to Aquarius Purple, I was recording a whole bunch of other stuff too. But it's just like I tell anybody, like the hardest part is like you can record so many songs, but then it's like narrowing it down to your 10 or 12 songs. And because you want to tell the story, you know what I mean? That's my
mm.
whole thing. It's like from the beginning, middle, end. So, it was kind of like find the right path and find the right songs to go, one song into the other. And yeah, the whole idea of Aquarius Purple is, of course, I'm Aquarius,
Right.
born in February, but the sound in the whole project represents the color purple. So that's where the Aquarius Purple, you know, the influences, of course, Jimmy Prince, but for me, the landscape of the whole project represents purple. So that's Aquarius Purple. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because I know like when it comes to like when it from like a mood ring sense, purple is like tranquility. So you kind of hear that in the
man.
music.
And then also too, you know, as a guitarist in this time, because you know we're not in the early '90s or '80s where guitar playing, you know, you had Slash, you had all these different guitar players, but you know now you're in a different time to where it's like if you know a certain person, then you know. But if you don't know, it's like how can you bridge the gap in between all these different genres? Because as much as I love Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck, I love D'Angelo and Raphael Sadiq and Tribe and Daylight and all that. And I'm a hip hop kid too as well. So my thing was like, how do you merge all these different genres of music without making it sound too crazy for people? Because, you know, in these days, people's attention spans are like super short. Like they could listen to something for 2 seconds and they're like a switch. You know what I mean? So for me, that was, I think the process of Aquarius Purple was finding a way to where you can have a really rock out psychedelic song, but then also to at the same time a soulful and funk at the same time. So, you know, I'm happy that you know, it came out the way that it did, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think I really feel like it definitely I think it came out exactly when it was supposed to in a sense. Because I like what you said about just as far as vinyl, because I just had this conversation with my friend the other day as far as like I started buying CDs again, and I had even got an old CD player and put it in just to have that experience where it's like you are like that experience of listening to top to bottom. No, you can't veer off to another album.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And I feel like that's the digital world that we live in. It's like we're like super spoiled because like, you know, you pay $10 for Spotify or Apple Music and you can have any type of artist that you want at your fingertips. You don't have to buy the record. You can stream it, add it to your playlist. And I think that's where the lost art, you know, has become a lost art, because now it's like people are not going to like Tower Records, but like back in the day, or Virgin Records. Like I would love to go to vinyl stores and like really listen to a whole album, you know, or a CD on your headphones and really go through it was like a journey, you know what I mean? It was like a whole experience.
Crate digging, you know what I mean?
Crate digging, you know, like me and you, like you'd be like, I remember in school, like, you know, cats, we would do this trade-off. You know, one friend would I would give him like Outkast, ATLiens, and then my other friend gave me Nirvana, Nevermind. It was like all these different, you know what I'm saying? Like I miss those days of like, you know, especially if I didn't know an artist, or, you know, you put me on to something, we would put each other on type of thing. And, you know, we would come back and say like, yo, what do you think? What do you think of this record? Oh man, this record is trash, or this record is good. You know what I mean? But I feel like, vinyl. But the thing is, what I'm starting to realize too, like vinyl, there's a whole community of vinyl heads. You know what I mean? It's not like a lost cause. Like it's a whole vibe. You know what I mean? And I realized that with you know, Aquarius Purple, because I was like, that was always one of my dreams to like, man, I want to have a record on vinyl, but really have it in the stores and really have that big, you know, cover art and stuff. So, you know, it worked out.
Yeah. I feel like because I was talking to this a friend I know in Baltimore. He was saying like, or he used to be in Baltimore. He was like, why do you buy vinyl just in general? And I was telling him just as far as like now, obviously as far as like more money going to the artist, but I was saying also too, like there's certain little exclusive things in vinyl. Like I remember buying, I want to say it was Jimmy Blues. And there was this article that I don't think was anywhere else that was written about Hendrix, and like different, like these certain photos being shot that aren't really like known online or found online, where you as an artist can really dive in and kind of give a little more piece of view personally to the consumer. And I'm like, man, that's just so cool, you know?
Yeah, man. For sure.
Definitely. I wanted to talk about 13, just because for one, I think it's a magnificent day for an exorcism. I think is
Yep.
a fantastic, underrated album.
Thank you, man.
I came across it, I was online, and I was like, I was like,
Thank you, man.
Pharoahe Monch, and
Yeah.
Marcus Machado. Let me check this out, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
But as far as just like the band getting together,
Mm-hmm.
how did that come about? How did that form?
Yeah. Okay. So 13, that came about through a good friend, which is Monch's manager, Guy Route. So he used to manage like a lot of people back in the day. Fishbone, Family Stand, very connected to Black Rock Coalition. And Sandra St. Victor, who was like my second mom. And, I used to play with the Family Stand. Those are like my musical parents. And through that affiliation, Guy would always tell me, he was like, yo, Monch, man, I gotta put you guys together to do this, do some type of project. I don't know what it is. And, Monch would come over to some of the shows that we have, and we linked up and, just kicking it in the studio and stuff. And Monch is the rockhead, as much as, an icon and, who he is, but he's a super heavy metal rockhead. And we would play all these records, and he was like, man, he's like, I want to do this hip hop, but like rock record, but not like the cliche, like, oh, it's a rock, whole bunch of like fast riff guitars and a lot of fast, spitting. Like, he's like, really, like, I want to have a concept to where like you're like the lead person, and I'll create the story or the picture of what the song is, and then maybe you take the lead on, at the end, really coming with these different concepts. So we sat in the studio and we just started bouncing around these different ideas. And then Daru came along, because Daru used to work with Monch back in the day too. And then me and Daru had a chemistry too as well. So then he was like, we need to put this group together and just call it 13, and let's really let's put our heads together and create, something that nobody's not doing. And that was another project too, because at the same time I was working on Aquarius Purple, I was also working on 13, and that project was literally another 7-8 year process too as well. It took a long time to get it to the way that we wanted. So that's why, like, when you hear the record, like the mixing and like every detail was very intricate on parts and stuff like that. And that's one thing people need to know about Monch. Like, as a great of an MC he is and lyricist, his ear for production and like mixing is crazy. You know what I mean? So that was, and then also too, I was able to go into my Black Sabbath, vibe and more, tuned down, guitar stuff. And I was like, man, I was like really experiment with that project. And then, we came up with this crazy, concept, the Magnificent Day. And it was such a fun band, and, a lot of more stuff, working on a lot of cool stuff that's coming out soon. So nice. Be on the lookout. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I was curious too, just because I'm a big rock fan as well. Yeah. So like having I guess technically a 2-piece band, but it's a 3-person band, like getting such a big sound, you know what I mean? Obviously like you have bands like Rush, Muse, but it's also a very risky and daring thing as far as to get that sound.
Yeah, it's super risky, because like with 13, that project, it was like, for me, it was literally like I'm the guitar player and bass player. So I would do like have the octave player play low end stuff. And then Daru is such like, his playing is such like massive and big.
Yeah.
It's just like, between us as a duo, and then Monch is up front. So we wanted to create, we was like, man, is that possible? Can we pull it off? I said, no, I said, just get a whole bunch of Marshall stacks and turn it up to 10. And then just play loud. But I mean, that was something that, we would just be in the studio and just jamming. And then we was like, because at first we tried different ideas. We was like, well, maybe we get a keyboard player and a bass player. And then we was like, nah, we need to keep it just as the trio and just see what happens. And the more that we kept jamming and just creating in the studio, that's how it came about. So it's a unique sound. And just with us, it's just trying new ways. You know what I mean? I mean, stuff has been done before, but especially in this time, just try to bring back that old like rock, like rock bands, and like really bring out the sound and stuff. So
it's just it's such a dope raw sound, because like I'm a huge fan of Jack White. Like, he's one of my favorite artists. So just having that same type of raw authenticity where it's like
Yeah,
drums,
right.
guitar,
It's simple. It's
it's,
pretty simple. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah, yeah,
but it
yeah.
fills the room like you said, like so it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
definitely a great sound there.
No, thank you, man. Thank you, man. Mhm.
Absolutely. I was gonna ask you too about your guitar tone because I'm a
Yeah,
huge fan of that.
right.
Started from like pedals, like as far as like an overdrive, what's your kind of go to that you really prefer?
But back in the day, of course, it was, the typical fuzz face. But what I've been using, like, so there's two pedals that I have. I have a Boss ME80,
Hmm.
which is, a lot of people, when you say it, they're like, oh, it's digital.
This guy, I knew
Crappy.
it. I
It's
knew it.
crap. I knew it. I knew it. Oh my God. There's something in there. But no, but the thing is, what I found out was because like traveling and like, you have your stuff in the bag and it gets smashed or cables or shit like that. And I would have been like, you know what? I need to find a pedal that's like, is there a pedal out there that it may be digital, but is there a way that I can make it my own? And with that Boss ME80, you're able to create your own presets. So it took me years to get it to how the way that I want it.
Hmm.
So, and it's like battery pack. Like you just hit the battery, it lasts for a long time before you have to change it. And for travel wise, you just put it in your backpack and you go, and everything is in there. So at home and like for like gigs around traveling wise, I would use that. But of course, I'm the analog all day. You know what I mean? But what I use currently is I love them to death is Beatronics.
Mm.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Beatronics. They're based out of here in LA, but guys, they're from Brazil. But incredible pedals. Like can't big them up enough. They have incredible fuzz faces. It's called this Vespa where you hit it, you double tap it, and then it goes into like an Octavia fuzz, but it almost sounds like a B. And
Mm.
that's why it's called Beatronics. And their pedals is like crazy distortion wise, like just ridiculous. So I've been using them a lot. Pedal wise, definitely them Beatronics. I use Vox, the Wawa, of course. Univibe, the MXR. I
Mm.
really like them a lot. And then surprisingly, I have this Tech 21 that I kind
Okay.
of go through. The Vespa. Yeah, and it's pretty cool, man. I mean, for me, I'm pretty simple with the pedals, like playing live. Like you'll see, tonight is pretty much a simple setup. But in the studio, that's where I kind of really experiment, and I use that as the laboratory to like really, backward stuff, reverse shit. But yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. I think uh fuzz wise, yeah, it's definitely Beatronics. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And then as
Yeah.
far as like amps, do you prefer Marshall or what do you play nowadays?
Yeah, amps nowadays I'm playing Black Magic from Supra.
Mm.
I've been using them a lot. They're pretty cool. They almost sound like a little bit of orange amp, but then it's also too got a little brightness of the Fender Twin.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool. I've been using them a lot, and then also too I use Fat Jimmy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fat
No.
Jimmy amp. So there's a guy based out of San Francisco, and like all the jam band stuff. You know what I mean? So like from Bob Weir and all like the Jerry Garcia with the
Oh
old,
wow.
yeah. So the amps are like incredible. So you have that tone. So I use them. For me, it's between the Fat Jimmy, the Supro, of course Fender Twin, for clean stuff, and yeah, and the Marshall, when I need to, for mostly for like 13 stuff is probably the Marshall and the Supro. Yeah. And what about you? What's some of your now I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Sure.
What's some of your favorite pedals and stuff that you use as far as distortion wise?
Yeah, you know what's
What do
funny,
you do?
man? I've gone into like it's funny. I feel like when it comes to guitar playing, there's a whole curve, and I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through the whole curve. So I got to the moment where I think I had an ME 85.
Mm-hmm.
I had an ME 85 back then, but
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like some of the distortions or overdrive it just wasn't exactly to my liking. I had the Line 6 FM4. I shouldn't have
Yeah.
sold that pedal. Like I fucked that up,
I
but
remember, yeah. I remember those. Those were, yeah, those were dope.
hmm but now my current setup, from my guitar into you have my tuner, and then I have for overdrive. I really like the Black Star LT Drive. It's
Okay,
like
yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah. I
smooth.
just,
Yeah, it's a smooth mid forward drive.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
kind of like a Boss Super Overdrive, but to me it sounds cleaner, like creamier almost.
yeah. But it still has to direct, like, you know, like really direct in your face. But it's not too bright. It has a warm sound too as well. Yeah, I forgot about
Exactly.
LTGs. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've been a really big fan of Black Star. I like their amps too, but
Mhm.
that overdrive pedal I like. And then I recently got the Wampler Triumph
Okay. Yeah.
overdrive,
Hmm.
just to give the my amp a little more hair as far as gain. But then I like the 3 band EQ,
Okay.
and it combines pretty well with the overdrive. I have MXR Phase 95,
Okay. Hmm.
which I
Hmm.
really like.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I go into the what else I go into? Oh, and then I have a new X analog delay,
Mm.
which
Man, you
is
got a whole setup, man. You got the whole.
pretty
Give me some
decent.
pedals. Give me some
Yeah,
pedals.
that
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a really small pedal board because I used to have
yeah,
like
yeah,
crazy like
yeah,
20 pedals, but it's just
yeah, yeah.
really slim, just everything that I need for a gig. So very similar to as far as like probably your thought process on like everything that I need, not
Yeah,
a
that's the
crazy
thing.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. And it took me a while too. Like I learned, like I just like have a whole bunch of different boards. You know what I mean? Just depending on what gig it is. You know what I mean? Like when there's like a big gig and you want to pull out like all the pedals, and I have a whole like so much different pedals on one board. But then I have the smaller setup that's pretty cool. And then yeah, it just really depends because like with all the cables and shit, like I remember that. It used to be bad, man. I used to have cables all over and you know, and then like you would go to Europe, and that was another reason why too that I started using the Boss ME80 for touring because you would go to Europe and you know your actual pedal they would plug it in the wrong voltage and it would blow out
Oh,
my whole shit. So it was just like then it would have to
damn.
rush, and that was one of the reasons why I was just like, you know what, let me get something that I control, and you know what I mean. So that was another reason why that I got that because it happened. And then also too, like I remember I was doing a gig in Italy and I just got this some custom pedals. There was a guy out of the Netherlands, Amsterdam. He made these custom pedals and I think I spent about maybe it was like maybe like a G 1500 with the flight cases and everything. Did one show, man. Went from Holland to Italy,
Hmm.
did the gig, it was cool, came back and I'm waiting in baggage claim, and I'm like, why am I waiting like an hour
Yeah.
for it to come? You know, I don't see it, and you know, it's a flight case. Man, that thing came back up on the baggage claim. Everything was open, cables were busted,
Oh my god.
destroyed. My whole entire thing was destroyed. And then I was arguing with the people, and they was like, "Well, it's nothing we can do." I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's nothing we can do." I just spent you know, no insurance, nothing on it. I'm like, and I mean, from like Holland to Italy is like what an hour, like 2 hours. It's not that far. But yeah, man, and that then and there, like from those experiences, I was just like, you know what, I'll have like my, you know, my main pedal board that I use, but then like for travel, I need to have something that's like I keep on me. You know, I take
Right.
on, you know, so. Mm.
Well, that's a good learning lesson for anyone who's listening. Like, damn, I need to buy some.
Yeah, keep it like, especially, you know, I would recommend like, unless you got like, you know, roadies and cats like that, you know, for like traveling, always have it on you. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
have it, bring it on the plane and like, do not check. I don't care if it's a flight case, like, do not check in your stuff because you never know. You never
yeah,
know. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the amp that I use right now, which I really like, is the Roland JC40.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's one of the better clean solid state amps that really takes pedals really well
Mm-hmm.
without changing my sound, without colorating it anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so and then obviously the reverb and chorus are like amazing on
Yeah,
there.
of course. Yeah, of course.
So
Because
that's
like for me, it's like I don't know. It's weird. It's like maybe it's just it depends on what genre of music. But then at times it's like, of course, I love Fender Twins, but then sometimes it just becomes too bright and too trebly. And it's just like, man, I need something warmer. And so it's like, for me, it's been a toss up, like, especially like with guitars. Like, currently, you know, I've been using the Bedford from D'Angelico, the Bedford SH, which is like super dope. It's like, those are probably one of the only guitars that I've been able to get. Like, when you want the Gibson to really come out, you get a Gibson sound, you can get it. When you want a Strat sound, you can get it. And it's just like, it's a very, very unique. Like, you can get many different tones out of the D'Angelico Bedford SH. And it was funny. It was like by default. This was like a couple of years ago. I was in the session, and the engineer, he was like, man, he was like, you need to check out these new D'Angelico guitars. He's like, I know you're a Strat guy, but he was like, man, you need to check them out. And I was like, D'Angelico? I was like, D'Angelico is more known for like jazz, like, you know, the big body, you know, guitars and stuff. And he was like, nah, man. He's like, these are some new stuff that's coming out, and picked it up in the studio and been playing ever since. I was like, man, I was like, this is really dope because, you know, of course, always a Strat guy forever. And, you know, I love Gibson too as well. But then sometimes I was just like, I want something different, you know what I mean? Looking for a different sound. And sometimes I would experiment with, like, you know, of course, you have a rosewood neck that's more of a darker tone.
Yeah.
You have maple neck is bright. But then I was just like, man, I need something else, you know what I mean, in my arsenal. And then also too, playing the left-handed, a lot of those guitars that I had was you know, Strats too as well. And then yeah, I came across the D'Angelico Bedford SH, and it's weird because usually, like, now I feel like they're becoming even more known because, you know, when you say D'Angelico, you're like, oh, jazz. You're
Right.
playing
Jazz box.
bebop. It's like, you're not going to be playing. You're not going to be playing no like rock out, you know, stuff. But no, they're really, really cool. Shout out to D'Angelico. And yeah, that setup, like, especially for the 13 setup, I've been using that along with the Super Black Magic. You know, check them out if you haven't checked out the Black Magic amps. They're super, super dope. They're super
Nice.
dope. Yeah.
I'll have to do that. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of those guitars too. I remember when I came across it and I was like, this feels really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. Just the feel of it, the tone, just everything about it. And also too, they're one of the few guitars that, you know, of course, it takes a while for you to break in the guitar if you get it. But I
Yeah.
mean, when I had like the first couple ones, it didn't take me like 2 or 3 years to like break it in. Like, I say about a maybe good like year,
Mm.
you know, to get it to how the way that you want it. So, you know, and they last. Like, I haven't had no issues with it. You know how sometimes, you know, over a course things starts to like break down and, you know,
Yeah,
veer
you're
heavy.
like,
So
damn, that's what was in here.
yeah, I was like,
It's
really?
terrible.
I left my guitar in there for 2 days, and the gauges on the strings is already up. Like, what's going on? Nah. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Mm.
great. Yeah, that's on my list to get. There was one in kind of a like a orange reddish color that I picked up, and I was like, God, this
Okay.
is really nice. I'll
Yeah.
have to get that eventually. My friend got
Yeah.
one, and I was like, I thought it was his other friend's guitar, and it was like, oh no, it's mine. I sold my grips,
Yeah.
and I got that. I was like, oh damn, well, cool.
Yeah. No, it was cool. Like, it's funny too because when I was in you know, Amsterdam, you know, there was actually, where I was staying at, there was like a mom and pop music store, and got real cool with the owner, and it was an older cat, and he used to make these guitars. Like, they're kind of like prototypes, but they look like Strats. But I would pick them up and I play. It was just like, the feel was crazy, and the
Mm,
guitar was like $300, like our money. You know what I mean? And it wasn't
wow.
no like you know, Squire guitar, you know. And I was just like, man, I was like, something about this guitar is killing. So then I told him, I was like, you know, this is before endorsements and all that stuff. And, you know, I've always been trying to reach out to Fender. Fender was like, man, unless you're John Mayer, nothing we can do for you. You know
Mm,
what I mean? So then I was just like, well, let me start making my own guitars.
yeah.
And I went to this guy, and he really sat me down, and, you know, I finally made like my prototype guitar, and it's kind of looks like a Strat, but it's the wood is ambrosia wood, and
Mm,
it's from the Netherlands. And it's just something about the tone was like crazy, man. And I just started building my own guitars, and
wow.
they called it MM guitars, and they look like Strats, but they're not. Like, you'll see tonight, I brought one that I'm going to use. But yeah, I just started getting into that, just like the wood. And, you know, of course, it's a process, and it's
Yeah.
just like, you know, that takes a long time. But, you know, I really start learning like the wood and like all the stuff of in a guitar. That's why a lot of the older guitars sound so great versus these new guitars, because it's the actual weight in the wood that they were using
Yeah.
back in the day. You know what I mean? And I feel like now, like a lot of these guitars are like, not all of them, but a lot of them are like manufactured. It's just
Yeah.
like the same. It's like how many thousands of the same guitar that you're gonna have. You know what I mean? So
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Yeah, I remember seeing a Macklemore guitar, and it's like, oh, this is wood from Israel. It's 100 years old. I'm like, God damn.
yeah,
That's why it's so expensive.
yeah. Crazy, man, crazy. I got a question for you too. I'll
Yeah.
tell you my answer too. Has there been any equipment or any guitar that you had that you lost that you wish that you had? Or something that you came across, you was like, I wish I had that right now because it would be like worth a lot of money.
Man, that's happened a few times. One, and I don't necessarily if it would be worth a lot, but I just know as far as like the value around like just like how great the guitar was. There's a Fender Music Master I think I came across at a GC. 1978 Music Master, and I always play the neck pickup. Like if I designed a guitar, I wouldn't have a bridge pickup. I would just have the neck pickup.
Yeah,
I feel like I can do an overdrive and I can do my chord stuff.
You get everything you need.
Exactly. Because I see all these guitars with just the bridge. I'm like, where's the one with just the neck? That's all I need. And I love the tone out of that pickup. You know, when I did play it, and the neck was incredible. It was insane. So yeah, there was a 78 Fender Music Master that I was like, God damn it. And then there's a made in Japan Fender 57 reissue that came across one time. It was only like $1,000, and that guitar felt insane. It was so light, you know, like you said, with the wood and stuff. It was, and I'm arguably more keen to Japan made instruments than American, which is interesting, but it just the guitar felt so light, and I think it was true rosewood, you know, before all like the crazy wood stuff happened, as far as like rosewood being hard to come by in the US. But man, that guitar felt great. That guitar felt great.
I could only imagine, man.
Yeah. I played it in, and I was like, shit, why I play this in? I can't buy this shit. I said, this is so nice. I'm starting to veer away from single coil though. Just like the 60
singles,
Like it sounds great with the 60 cycle. So on a rare occasion, I have one guitar because I do part caster stuff. Like I'll kind of put shit together Frankenstein style. So I've done that. But for my gigs, I tend to just stick with humbucker. I think the last guitar that still sticks in my brain that I came in and I was like, dang, I should have got that was it was a Schecter Keith Miro MK6. So I know a lot of times there's like a 7-string one, but this is a 6-string. It was a neck through. It was South Korean made, stainless steel frets. I'm not sure what the wood was, but I held that guitar and I was like, whoa.
Bro, you can tell some other,
Yeah, and it was really versatile pickups. No idea what the pickups were, but when I played it, I was like, you can really play anything on this. And I really have respect Schecter for that, because I feel like originally Schecter was like, yeah, if you want to do the chug stuff, you know, or just like the crazy stuff, but now they've really opened the door up to just a variety of sounds.
No, for sure, man. No, that's a crazy. You know, guitars are like cars, man. That's what I tell everybody. It's just like, what do you prefer? You know what I mean? Everybody has their preference and stuff. I know for me, one guitar that I let get away was, I mean, this is the crazy story. Well, I was 16. At the time, I was in Florida doing a gig, and after the gig, it's a crazy guy. Don't know who he is. He comes up on stage after the show. He goes, "You sound great. You're amazing," and gives me a gig bag and walks off. Never seen him again. So I'm like, okay. And I kind of like open it up, take a little glance at it, and the neck is like busted. It's parts. It's just like guitar parts. And I'm just like, why does this guy give me guitar parts? Whatever. So don't think nothing of it. Zip it back up. When I get home, I don't even check it. I'm just like, whatever. So I had a friend of mine, he built guitars, and I called him up the next day and I was like, yo, I was like, this guy gave me like a whole bunch of guitar parts. I don't know, like maybe you do something with it. And I was like, call me if you find anything. And he called me. He was like, okay, cool, bring it down. Still didn't open up the bag. Just gave it to him, whatever. And like 2 or 3 weeks went by, and he hit me out of the blue, and he was just like, man, he was like, Marcus, he's like, listen, that guitar, get over here ASAP. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, that guitar you gave me, he's like, you're not gonna believe what you have. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I was like, you put it together. He was like, just come over. So I get to the spot. It's laid out on the table, bro. It was a 1956 Gold Top.
Whoa!
All original. Everything
all
original.
Stock.
All original. And I was like, ain't no way, bro. I just like, it bugged me out. I was just like, ain't no way. The guy didn't know. Who knows where it came from.
Wow.
I played the guitar and he put it all together. And I was like, this shit is amazing. I was like, I was like, a Gold Top. I was like, I don't even have like Gibsons in my arsenal. And I was just like, and that guitar, unfortunately, I used to keep my stuff in storage. And I had like a bunch of amps and guitars in there, and somebody pickpocket.
Oh no!
So that ended up getting stolen from me.
Damn.
But if I still had, this was like 90. At that time, that had to have been about like 96, 98. So this is 2023. That had probably be like close to 100,000 right now.
Wow.
80, like
cow.
Between like 80, around 80, 100,000.
Jeez.
Because it was all original, and he really, like, we sat down and we went through everything, looked up everything, the serial number. I was like, this is crazy. I've never seen a guitar that was in parts put back together, and it was a Gold Top.
Wow. And that's actually a testament to your friend for how talented of a as far as like a luthier that he is, because when it comes to I'm sure you know this, but SGs and Les Pauls, putting together the neck, I mean, most of the time they don't sound the same once you crack a headstock.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I was just like, man, I was blown away. And I had it, I mean, I didn't even get a chance to play. I maybe had it for maybe like, that was like a month, 2 months after that. That's probably like the guitar that I would be like, if I was able to get that back, that would be cool. But I think from that experience, I think now, I remember when I only had like one guitar, but now it's like I'm kind of like in the stage of like collecting guitars and like kind of like getting them more into the vintage, type of stuff. Like me and Vernon Reed, which is like my uncle. He knows me since I was like 13, and we always go back and forth. And he's like, when I see him, I'll be like, I said, I got a guitar for you. He's like, okay, I'll wait till you give me a guitar and we trade. But then he's like, I'm not giving you my guitar first. He's like, you got to give it to me first. You know what I'm saying? So we're doing one of those trade-ins. Like, I have one of his, he have one of mine, and kind of like start a whole collection. I don't know if you know the story of Metallica. You probably do, where they put all their money together as a group, and then every city they would go to, they would have the roadies go and find like vintage equipment and guitars, and then they have a whole storage unit of like all these vintage guitars like they collect on the road. And this is a whole different,
wow.
It's a landscape. It's a landscape, because I mean,
that's really smart too, because that's almost like equity. You know what I mean? Like once you guys are donezo or whatever, it's like that's like money for y'all.
You're chilling. And then the thing is that then you can start getting into trade-ins too, because you'll trade. The story with Slash and Joe Perry. You know what I mean? When I think he bought a guitar. I think he bought a Les Paul from Joe Perry, and then that was like one of Joe Perry's favorite guitars, and then Joe Perry tried to buy it back from Slash. Slash was like, nah. But Slash gave it back to him, for his birthday or something like that. Yeah, it was like crazy stuff like that. Yeah.
That's funny, man. Jeez. Yeah, it's funny, man, because my wife is like, why do you have so many guitars? So I'm just like, they're all different. I was like, different. The shoes you buy, they're all different. Like,
a lot of people don't understand that. They just think that every guitar sounds the same, which I don't understand why, because maybe they're not into they don't know the whole guitar stuff, but it's
Yeah,
just like shoes and clothes. Like, do you wear
exactly.
clothes, the same shirt every day? No, you know
Right,
what I mean? So,
right.
how many guitars you got in your collection?
Oh man, I used to hate that question because it would be a lot. But right now, because I actually put some on the wall, so
Where
if I'm
you at?
look,
Are you in your 20s or are you in your 30s?
oh
What's up?
no, no,
Are you in
no,
your
no,
10s?
no, I would
You in
be
your 10s?
divorced. I would be divorced if it was in the
Sold your
twenties,
house?
man.
Sold your house? You
Yeah,
sold it?
I would be sleeping on my guitars because I'd be put on the street. No, I think I'm at, I'll probably say
Okay.
eight,
Killing.
7,
Killing.
8.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
killing.
then I would say, and then I always have like a list where I'm like, okay, what's giggable and what's bedroom, and then what's what I'm working
Yeah,
on. I probably
yeah.
have 3 giggable guitars. So the one I
Giggable
played,
guitar.
yeah, the one I played yesterday was a Mitchell that I upgraded, and I put a Fender 57 Classic
Mm,
Plus in the neck.
mm.
But yeah, so and then I get a really crazy, like almost a 70s type of sound just because of
That's
how
crazy.
how the magnet, it's like near the middle but it's at the end at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because my friend he's a really good guitar player, he was like, dude, that guitar, I don't know, I don't like, you got lucky with the sound is nuts, the sound is
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So with my overdrives and everything, it's just like, wow, like
The
this is
tone, yeah,
dope.
man. That's what, and like I said, I mean, it took, like everybody else, like it takes years before, you get the tone that you want. You know what I mean? Because, usually everybody's like, well, I want it to sound like this person, to sound like that person. But, over, experimenting with different equipment and different guitars and finding the right tone you want, then, it's like a kid in a candy store. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I was gonna ask you for your guitars,
Mhm.
what pickups do you have in there?
The pickups, I have two single coils in the D'Angelico and then a humbucker.
Mm,
Yeah, man, they're all Rogers,
okay.
Rogers and stuff. Yeah, yeah. And then the other ones that I have, they're like stock, custom stock joints that
Yeah.
a friend of mine's in the Netherlands made. But yeah, it's
Mm,
pretty simple, man. Pretty simple,
nice.
straightforward. Yeah, yeah,
Very
man.
nice. Yeah, that's the one thing I haven't dove into yet as far as like making my own pickups, but that's just
That's something, yeah, that's something else. Yeah, that's
yeah.
something that, when I was making the guitar, like we just got some different stock pickups just to start off, but that's something probably somewhere down the line to get to. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's a guy in Florida, in Orlando. I forget his name, but he's the cat. Like, if you ever want pick, I gotta find his number. But this guy pickups, he makes custom pickups. Like you tell him like what year of pickups you want, and he'll make it for you. Be
Oh
like, yeah, I want a
wow.
'68. I want a '68, a Jazz Master, or I want a Telly, and he'll make it exactly pickups how the way that they work just
Oh
for you.
wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then my other friend of mine, he was I seen him play the other day, and he had like a Jazz Master, but then he had a single coil and a humbucker on that. It was just
Whoa.
experiment, like, but the tone was like crazy, man.
Wow.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So, just experimenting, man. That's, taking it apart to mess it up again.
Exactly.
You
I'm like,
know?
God damn it, gotta unwind the
Yeah,
strings.
guys, let me do it again. Damn.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, before we end here today, was there anything that we can look forward to as far as just people that are fans of yours from
Yeah,
all the
man.
stuff you do?
Yeah, man. Just be on the lookout. New album is on the way. You getting the exclusive. First. New album is coming very soon, and more new shows. I'm gonna be out on the road this summer. A lot of be back out here a lot. Tonight I'm playing at the Mint, and in LA. So all my West Coast fans come out, and yeah, just a lot of new music, a lot of cool stuff coming up. Yeah, man.
Nice.
Hmm.
Very cool. Well, hey,
Yeah.
Marcus Machado, I really appreciate you being on the show today, man. It's
Oh,
been a
thank you.
real pleasure talking to you. It's been
Yeah, man. Same.
almost a year in the making, but I'm glad.
I know, man. It was the gremlins. It was the gremlins. The
Yeah.
internet gremlins.
It's all good, man.
No,
All
man, but
good.
no, appreciate, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Mm.
Well, there you have it, folks. This is Jerrell Pal here on the 440 Guitar Podcast. We will jam again soon and have a good day.